This interview is conducted so we can find out about how life was in Los Alamos by people that lived there. Can you tell us how your father was involved with the Los Alamos Ranch School? He has a reputation of being a very good gardener. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. My father did not have any formal education, but he had a library of books on trees, which he owned an orchard. He had knowledge of how to grow vegetables, how to keep them throughout the winter. So the ranch boys had fresh vegetables all through the year.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when your father first went to work at the Los Alamos Ranch School?
I was not born yet.
Yeah, okay.
He was there, and I'm sure one of my older siblings was born there. Then he moved to Colorado, and I know Margaret was born in Colorado. Then he moved back to Los Alamos, and Rubel and I were born in Los Alamos. Now there's 2 or 3 that I'm not sure if they were born in Los Alamos or in Colorado.
Who was your father's immediate supervisor at the school? Do you remember?
A.J. Connell.
A.J.
He answered to A.J. Connell. That's why I know him, his name and him so well.
Did your father grow all the vegetables that were used at the schools, or most of them?
All.
All the vegetables?
Yes.
And then he was involved in storing the vegetables through the winter?
He used to dig these deep holes underground and put the vegetables there, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them, and cover, and they stayed fresh there. He also had a cellar. Mm-hmm. We had a big, big cellar, and he stored some in there also.
Mm-hmm. Did you get to know all the teachers at the school, or some of the teachers at the school?
Yes.
Do you remember some of the teachers at the school?
I remember Mr. Worth, Mr. Hitchcock, and there's quite a few in here. This book has them all.
Okay, fine. We'll refer to that book.
We can refer to that.
Okay.
Mr. Church, one son, Peter Worth, that is the councilman in Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah, Peter Worth, yes.
He's a son of the Worths that lived there.
Okay, Peter Worth married the daughter of the famous architect John Gamin. John Gamin in Santa Fe.
Right.
How was it growing up in Los Alamos, around the Los Alamos Ranch School? Was it a very peaceful place?
That was the best place to grow up. It was peaceful, well, like I say, I didn't realize there could be crime. It was beautiful because everybody was equal. Mm-hmm. There was no difference between Indians, Spanish, Anglos. We were all one. I didn't know what discrimination was. Mm-hmm. I wasn't brought up with discrimination at all.
Mm-hmm. Did the Los Alamos Ranch School employ quite a few people from the Pueblo, and in what capacities?
We didn't have too many. Well, like I say, I really couldn't tell you who was what, because to me everybody was like me. Mm-hmm. If there could have been Indians there, but I wouldn't have known that they were Indian. They just didn't show us, well, he's Anglo or he's Spanish or he's Indian. We were all, like they say, Americans.
Yeah. Now, what about the students? Did you get to mix a lot with the students?
Yes.
Can you tell us about some of the students that came in from the East?
We mixed with them for like a Christmas dinner, like a Thanksgiving dinner. the whole Los Alamos ate at the big house. And they had their graduation at the end, and we were included in their graduation services. In fact, there was one student that was bald. He didn't have hair. And my godmother had given me a big doll that didn't have hair. And the boy's name was Nelson, so my brothers would tease me and call my doll Nelson. That was not very nice, but I was the baby, so I needed to be teased. But the boys all treated us like...
Most of the boys came from families that had money.
Yes.
But they were very easy to get along with. No problem. No problem.
If you ever read this book, it started out, Mr. A.J. Connell started it out for boys that had some kind of an illness like respiratory problems.
Tuberculosis.
And respiratory problems, because that was the place to get away from city problems. And then the parents would go visit. So that's when they had guest houses, and the parents would stay in these guest houses.
Can you tell me how things were there during the winter? Did you ever spend any winters in Los Alamos?
Yes, there are a lot of them.
Was there a lot of snow, a lot of heavy snowfalls in Los Alamos?
We had so much snow that my father would take us tobogganing. He would have this large toboggan and pull it with his pickup, and we had a ball. Los Alamos had more snow than I've seen anywhere since we moved away from there, which they don't have anymore. They have snow, but not like we did. We had sleds, we had ice skating. We had just about all the entertainment the boys had, with the exception of horseback riding. That we did not do, but they did. They had their horses.
Did any of the students do any skiing at Los Alamos during the winter?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How did the homesteaders and the people that lived there, did they socialize with each other a lot? Did they visit each other? There was a lot of visiting and a lot of kinship and a lot of neighborhood.
See, the homesteaders, I wasn't aware of. Who would you call homesteaders?
The people that...
See, not all the people that lived there had property.
The people that were involved with the Los Alamos Ranch School, how many families supported the ranch school or were employed by the Los Alamos Ranch School?
All of them.
All of them. That'd be about how many people? You don't know?
Not too many, but there was enough to take care of each need for the school. Every vocation that you would need for helping the school.
Like all the employees was one big happy family.
Exactly, exactly. And like I tell you.
And the ranch school provided, they provide like electricity.
We had electricity. They would provide a hunk of ice every day. We didn't have electric refrigerators. We had ice boxes.
Well, all that was provided by the school. Can you tell me a little bit about the education that at Los Alamos for the children that were not attending the Los Alamos Ranch School? Who ran the school for the children?
Our teacher was Mrs. Russo.
Was this run by the Sandoval County?
I have no idea.
Okay, there was a teacher for,
Her husband ran the store, Mr. Russo, and Mrs. Russo was our teacher.
okay. And how many students went to the school there?
Well,
and how
like
many
I
grades?
tell you, 2 in our class. I'm not sure about the others, but I don't think there were that many
So there were different classes, more than
from
just...
1st through 8th. And Severo, the one you have in that other book, and I were the only 2 students in my class.
In the 2nd grade. So you got a lot of individual attention.
And, well, you can't say that because there was only one teacher from,
One teacher for all 8 grades?
and then she got a helper later on. But I remember being sat in the front to read when I don't believe we had kindergarten, I think it was 1st grade. And when the guests would come over, they'd come to visit our school. And I remember being sat in a little chair to read to the guests. Because I could speak Spanish and English fluently when I went to school. Which I give my father a lot of credit because he knew that education was in both languages.
Do you have any questions on the school itself? The schooling?
No.
No.
Oh, yes. What did the school look like?
Our school our school was just a big building, a long building, and then it had like a folding door or that you could separate the classes from, and then we had a hall where we'd hang our coats. We had the ladies' restroom here and the boys' restroom there. And that was it. A little lobby in the front where you came in.
And on that map, here on that map, you show where Ashley Pond is there.
Where Ashley Pond
Here's
is.
Ashley Pond and here's Fuller Lodge.
Okay, and the school was just about right here, straight from Ashley Pond. Yeah. This is Ashley Pond.
Right.
And this is Fuller Lodge.
Right.
So the school was right in between here. And then from Ashley Pond, we lived right around here. We were the first houses you came into Los Alamos through the only road that was available then. Now you have different. Well, when Los Alamos, when the government took over, they made a road on the bottom part of Los Alamos. The entry was here, and then they made another road on the other side. But now that's pretty large compared to when we were there.
Whenever the Army started taking over, did they give any notice? Did they give much notice?
That I would not know because, like I say, I don't even remember why my father decided not to stay because I was the youngest and I didn't have any input.
So after you left grade school at Los Alamos, you went to Loreto.
I went to Loreto in the 7th grade.
Seventh. And then your brother attended the Los Alamos Ranch School, Rubel. How many years did he attend the ranch
Well,
school?
he had just gotten a scholarship to the school when the government took over, so he was there for for a semester. He had just started 9th grade. He's 2 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
And he had just started when the government took over and the school closed.
Was it, do you remember the people saying it was very traumatic when the government took over and people had to leave?
No, it sure was for us. But like I say, I don't remember about as a community.
Yeah.
But I now realize that if Los Alamos hadn't taken over, where would we be as far as jobs are concerned? Santa Fe and all the surrounding areas. But then we didn't want to give up that life. That was so beautiful. That was such a great upbringing that we did not want to leave. But my father always wanted us to go to private schools and Catholic schools. So I think he thought at that time, well, Loreto and St. Michael's were boarding schools. But then my sisters moved to Santa Fe also, so we all lived together in Santa Fe. My dad stayed here in Espanola, and my mom, he took over his orchard.
Now, this book on Santa Cruz de la Cañada shows that there were religious services at Los Alamos. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Father Jose Cubeles would go up to Los Alamos. I'm not sure, but I think it was more often than once a month. It could have been once a month. I'm not sure on that, but he used to go, and I'm sure you knew him.
Yes, I knew Father Cubeles very well.
Father Cubeles was funny.
Yeah, yeah.
He could tell jokes, and he'd go to our house for breakfast, and we had such a good time with him. In fact, he was the one that baptized me. He was a very good friend of our families. He and my father were very close. My father would take apples from his orchard to all the priests here in Santa Cruz.
So your father maintained an apple orchard in San Pedro.
Yes.
And he also worked at the school, so he was a very busy man.
Well, he had a family that lived in their house here that took care of the orchard during the time that he was at Los Alamos. When he left Los Alamos, then he took it over.
Can you tell me how your father was involved with the New Mexico State teaching agriculture techniques to students? I understand your father would bring people to learn techniques on agriculture.
What I remember is that, remember Paul Trujillo?
Yes, yes.
What was he?
County agent.
Okay. The county agents would go over to our house, and he would teach them or show them how he grafted different kinds of apples on one tree, and his other techniques that made his orchard so outstanding. Because like I say, he didn't have formal education, but he educated himself with reading and ordered all kinds of books.
Could we go back to the church in Los Alamos? You told us a little bit more before we started the formal interview about where the church was, where the services were, and you had a funny little story about going to confession, and I wasn't supposed to know who was in there, but
the mass was given in the school building. They would push that divider so that we could hear. And we just had chairs and a little altar, not like a real church. And our confessional was where we hung our coats, in the little hall where we hung our coats. So really, there was no way that he'd not know, I guess, who we were. And when I would go into confession, he would tell me to let my mother know that he'd be there for breakfast after Mass, which he knew he was always invited. There were no really rules or regulations with Father. We could just be ourselves, and because everybody was so good up there.
Your family had a big say in the building and maintaining of the chapel at San Pedro. This book indicates that Adolfo Montoya and his wife Elaisa Montoya donated land in 1940.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about the chapel at San Pedro?
That chapel is right next to the property that's still in the family. Bill Caperton now owns it because Margaret, my sister who passed away and was married to him, had bought it from my dad. So Bill Caperton is the owner of that property now, but it's right next to where the chapel exists. And my dad gave that property so that the chapel could be built.
Well, I think that's, do you have any other information you'd like to share with us about your father and the Los Alamos Ranch School?
My father had a little pet lamb, and this little lamb would follow him everywhere he went. I remember plainly he would be going with his big wheelbarrow full of vegetables, and this little lamb trotting behind him. Of course, I don't think my father would allow the little lamb to go in the kitchen at the big house, at the kitchen. But that little lamb was with him all the time. And one day, of course, my mother never allowed animals, cats, dogs, any kind of an animal in the house. And we had an entry that was just a porch. Well, that day, my father purposely let the lamb walk into that porch. And my mother saw him, and she came at him and with a broom and managed to get him out. Well, after the minute my mother would stand on the door, that lamb would stand there and he'd go at her because she had been mean to him. That story I'll never forget.
Yeah.
But my dad was so good to animals. He was so good to, he just loved everything. My dad was, to me, I would always say my dad is next to God.
Well, your father had a very good reputation for many good things. And that's why we needed to get more information on your father, because people read about Adolfo Montoya in a very general way.
What other kind of animals did he have?
None.
None, just the lamb?
Just a lamb. And we never had animals here in Espanola. Well, yes, he used to buy piglets, and he used to raise pigs for our own pork. And after he gave that up, we never found pork as good as the one he raised. But he did raise pigs. From little piglets, he would buy them babies and raise them up.
Did your family have any milk cows at Los Alamos?
No.
No.
Well, I don't know when they on that property that we were paid for, no, that they homesteaded. I don't know what went on on that property. I know they had to live there, but I wasn't born.
So no chickens or turkeys?
No.
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 Your father is listed in the faculty and staff as the head gardener. So your father was very, very important there at Los Alamos Ranch School.
And not only vegetables, but he had rose bushes, flowers, and he took his flowers from Los Alamos to these shows in Santa Fe, and he has trophies that he won on all his flowers that he grew at Los Alamos. He had a green thumb. And I guess it wore off on me because they tell me my plants look very healthy.
Okay. After the family left Los Alamos, did anybody from the family return to work at Los Alamos?
Rubel. Rubel worked at the post office for a while, but not very long.
Okay, and then your husband worked at Los Alamos?
Yes.
Okay, when did Reuben go work at the
Reuben went in 1952, and he was there for 34 years. He retired after 34 years.
Okay,
Who did he work with? And what kind of work did
He worked with health research.
he worked at the, right next to the hospital. Health research, working with animals. Overall, what are your impressions of the employment Los Alamos has provided for the people of the valley?
Well, like I say, if the government hadn't taken over, I think a lot of people would have had to move out of Espanola to find jobs. That I'm grateful for, but I'd still be up there otherwise.
You mentioned when we were just preparing this that you never wanted a job in Los Alamos, and so could you?
The first time I went to Los Alamos after we moved away, which was a few years, it reminded me of an army camp. And it just didn't seem like a community to me. And I don't know, I never asked for a job really. I was always offered the jobs I held, so I never had to go apply.
So your stay at Los Alamos was very, very memorable and something that you will forever cherish.
For as
forever.
young as I was when I left, I do remember
The beauty.
the beauty and the goodness of the people and of the school personnel. They were wonderful, and so were the boys. And my brother, Lucas, was the first to be killed in battle from Los Alamos.
When did your family first realize that there would be a lawsuit related to the taking over of the land in Los Alamos? And you say one of your nephews who's a lawyer was involved.
No, he is a lawyer, but he was not
okay.
involved. He just took it upon himself to write on behalf of his mother.
No, okay. He
Because
represented your mother.
He represented his mother.
Okay.
His mother, who is my sister.
Okay.
But to my knowledge, I had no idea that my father, to my own personal knowledge, but my oldest sister has she has the deeds for the property. So she knew, and according to her, I'm not sure who started this, but there was a representative from each family that had land there. And they actually met with lawyers long before I was aware of it. And that lasted over 9 years before the government would do anything about it. I know they contacted our New Mexico representatives, senators, but it took that long to get any help whatsoever.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason that my nephew spoke up on behalf of his mother is that he thought it was a steal at $3,000 an acre. When right where we live now, it's like $85,000 an acre, where we live in San Pedro. The property was not, may have been worth that then, but he thought that the owners could be getting what it's worth now had the government not taken over. But like I say, in order for them to have proceeded for more, they figured a lot of it would be involved in the attorneys, because if it took longer than 9 years to go back to that, they may have even come out with less.
So how long after the lawyers got involved did it take for the government to settle with the homesteaders?
It was a little over 9 years.
9 years
I would
total.
say 10 or 11.
9 years total.
To settle.
To settle, okay.
When was the settlement approximately?
About 3 years ago. I have the copies of all the information I got, but time flies, but I don't think it was over 3 years.
Do you remember?
And my sister would say, she'd say, because Lucia has a son that's an attorney also. Two of my sisters have sons that are attorneys. And Michael would tell her, you can't beat the government. You can't beat the government. Don't waste your time. And she'd say, I'm doing it in memory of my father. And she did it.
Were people generally happy with the settlement in the way it happened? They were glad they got something.
I would imagine so, but
most people were happy that it was over with, and they were happy that there was the settlement, the lawsuit was over. Yeah.
But it should not have taken that long.
No.
I know how everything takes time, but 9 years is a little much. I personally believe that our representatives should have been in there fighting for it a lot sooner. And maybe they were, but maybe they couldn't get the cooperation of the rest.